Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we're going to be analyzing the new House forecast from FiveThirtyEight and also looking at their brand new 2018 Senate forecast from FiveThirtyEight. So this is relatively new compared to the House forecast. Everyone was pretty happy when the House forecast came out because it had a map for every district and the chances and possibly the predicted popular vote in these elections come 2018. They have done the same exact thing for the United States Senate, and they're pretty interesting to say the least. They have a light, classic, and deluxe option, which some races do vary depending on, let's say, deluxe, which shows some races a little bit more contested than they would before. For example, Nebraska, likely Republican. That's pretty surprising. Nebraska is typically a safe Republican state, but now it's a likely Republican state, and they're expecting the incumbent Republican to win by 10%, 11% actually, exactly 11%, but that's pretty surprising to say the least. When it goes down to classic, which is just the polls and past voting trends, it gets a lot more Republican, and then if you just go light, and actually, I believe it doesn't get closer than what deluxe would show it as, just still a Republican state, but the chances are a little bit less for the incumbent Republican. So Nebraska may not be the best example, so I usually start off with classic as I do in the House forecast, but for this case we're going to look at another state, for example Florida. So according to the classic polls and just past voting trends in the state, historical trends, fundraising, things like that, Bill Nelson would win this race very narrowly. If we go over to the light forecast, that one is expected to still go to Bill Nelson, but it's a lot narrower of a margin. If we go into deluxe, which is the experts ratings in these races, Bill Nelson has a little bit higher chance of winning, but still a very close race throughout all of these. But the classic, I would say, gives him, I don't think it gives him as much as an advantage as the deluxe does, even though it is only by 0.1%. Still, the deluxe typically favors Democrats in a couple of these states, mainly because many experts do expect Democrats to win in a couple of these races. But in North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp for a contested race, regardless of any way that you put it. In classic as well, in light as well. In fact, in light, it actually shows the Republican winning. So overall, enough talking about those new features. It was just a talk about them itself. I'm pretty much going to be using this on deluxe now, and same for deluxe in terms of the House forecast. Classic typically is pretty accurate, but still, I would like to take deluxe only because of the fact that it has expert rating added into it. So not only is it just doing the polls, fundraising, everything like that, deluxe is also added into it. So first of all, for the House forecast, the average gain for Democrats is plus 35 seats. They need 23 to take the majority back, and less than 10% chance the Democrats gain fewer than 16 seats, which means it is possible for them to not take back control of the House of Representatives. But right now it is a 78% chance according to deluxe and 83% chance according to the classic. And the Republicans have a 2 and 9% chance of keeping control of the House. When we look at a couple of these areas, I mean, all these shaded, striped blue, districts are areas where FiveThirtyEight predicts a pickup for the Democrats. We have one here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I believe that may be 1, 11, 12, 13, 14. Around just a little bit more than 23. Overall, they are expecting the Democrats to take the majority at this point in time. As you can see where it started off, it did get a little bit closer before, but now it's starting to go out a little bit farther. Popular vote margin has fluctuated just a tad bit, but been around the same amount for a while. And you can just keep going through a couple of these races, look at a time where the Democrats controlled the House for over 40 years. And then we can go over to the Senate forecast. There isn't much to see here either. That's surprising. It's probably, it was FDR's time. But looking at what we see now, the Senate is probably a lot more contested than the House. Right now, it shows the Republicans with a 68% chance of keeping control and the Democrats with a 32% chance of winning control. So the average gain is plus 0.2 Democratic seats. That's not how it works in the Senate. So essentially, it's just saying that the Republicans are likely to keep their current composition, and there's an 80% chance that the outcome falls between Democrats gaining 3 and the Republicans gaining 3. And I would say Republicans gaining 3 has a little bit more of a chance, mainly because they have more opportunities for it. If we look down at some of these races, so since we are on deluxe, Tennessee is not expected to go to the Democrats according to deluxe. It isn't even on classic or light, I don't believe. Actually, light, it's a very narrow 0.1% win, but in deluxe, it's pretty solid that the GOP wins there. So a 2 and 3% chance for Marsha Blackburn to win in Tennessee. So that one is completely thrown out of the column, which is why FiveThirtyEight doesn't give Democrats a huge shot at winning here. If we go over to Arizona, yes, Kirsten Sinema leads, but it is by a narrow margin. But still, that's pretty good. As for the state of Texas, Ted Cruz in a little bit of trouble there, but still expected to win. So another possibility for the Democrats gone. And then Missouri, hold on. held on for the Democrats. Indiana as well held on for the Democrats. North Dakota very narrowly held on for the Democrats. Same thing with the state of Florida. Bill Nelson narrowly holds on to that state. Pretty much, again, the Democrats do have a possibility of having pickups here, but if Arizona and Nevada, if they are to win there, they also have to be holding on to a number of their races elsewhere. They can't be losing in states like Florida or states like North Dakota or Missouri and expect to take back the majority. I believe, according to this map, according to this deluxe map, the Democrats do indeed take back the Senate majority, if I'm not mistaken, because there aren't really any GOP pickups on this map. Unless I'm missing one and I'm just completely blind, I don't think there are any at this point in time. Florida is Democratic, Indiana is Democratic, Missouri is Democratic, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Maine, Vermont, North Dakota even, Montana, Nevada, and Arizona. All of this would just give the Democrats a +2 gain in the United States Senate. So according to the deluxe map, the Democrats are poised to take back the control of the United States Senate, but it isn't really likely because if you look at these races, they could tip either way. 51 to 48%. Okay, 49.3% to 47.5%. Marshall Blackburn winning 50 to 46. So that one could go to the Democrats if the race does change. Missouri could go to the Republicans. Indiana could go to the Republicans. North Dakota most definitely could go along with the state of Florida. Overall, this map looks pretty beneficial for Democrats considering it is telling them that they are going to gain 2 seats, but anything can happen at this point in time. There are some tipping point states, and Texas is actually in that running. I mean, I thought it would be another state, but it's Texas with Ted Cruz, which is typically stereotyped as a very Republican state. Not so much in this election. Nevada was expectable. North Dakota, Tennessee, and Florida, most definitely. In terms of vote power index, is a relative likelihood that an individual voter in a state will determine the majority party. So it's probably North Dakota because not that much in terms of population. Montana's around the same, but North Dakota is a lot more contested than the state of Montana. Montana is likely Democratic. The state of North Dakota is not at all leaning in the favor of the Democrats. It's showing Heidi Heitkamp winning, but it's a toss-up state. For the 2018 House elections, it looks a lot better for Democrats. Let's actually pull up the map. I don't like the cartogram type look to it. The map looks just a little bit better. I mean, in some areas, Democrats are doing better. Not so much in areas like Texas. I mean, that's areas where I think the Democrats could have possibilities of pickups, but again, gerrymandering does take an effect into it. Over in states like New York or Iowa or in down in Arizona, it is possible for the Democrats to win there and gain some seats, but I think most of their gains are going to come from states like California or possibly New York, some in Florida, maybe one in Texas if it does go. I believe one in Minnesota if they hold on to the other one in Iowa, and of course, like I said before, a couple in Arizona. Actually, probably just one in Arizona, to be completely honest with you, but again, most of them coming from the state of California. So when we look at this race here, of course, California is solidly Democratic. So a number of these key Democratic areas, not much to focus on. Just those typically Republican states, Democrats have made these Republicans vulnerable. Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, and somehow Nebraska has become a lot more contested than where they were before. Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, and Nevada were all states that were solid for GOP candidates back in the year 2012. And that was on Obama's coattails. I mean, yes, you shouldn't expect Obama to lead any Democrat to victory in Nebraska or Tennessee, but Arizona, possibly. In Texas, possibly. And yes, times have changed. Yeah, times have changed. That doesn't help the GOP. In Nebraska, I don't know how this race has gotten closer. Could be candidates. Could be a GOP opposition. Could be Trump's approval rating here is only 4%. Interesting. Not only 4%, only positive 4%. In the state of Tennessee, that is a state that pretty overwhelmingly supports the president. Shouldn't be seeing these numbers, but it likely is only because of the candidates. If this was any other Democrat, likely wouldn't be this close. As for Arizona, it probably wasn't the Democratic candidate. She wasn't too well known. It likely could be a change in tide from a Republican state to a toss-up state, which could somehow become a leading Democratic state because of demographic changes, a couple of issues affecting the nation, especially states like Arizona that also coincide with areas like Texas, areas along the border, immigration a top issue, something that may put Democrats in more of an advantage because of the, Democrats' portrayal of the president not building the wall, even though there may be some falsehoods in a couple of the claims they do make. Overall, some voters may be angry at the president because they aren't seeing direct results in terms of his direct action that he's been taking. So that's why a couple of these races have gotten a little bit closer. Ted Cruz now vulnerable from where he was before. This would have been a safe race before. Arizona now leaning Democratic, where it would have been a safe race for the GOP before. Tennessee, likely because of the candidates, because there is a former governor running, went from a safe Republican seat now to a leaning Republican seat, so still good for the GOP. But Nebraska safe to likely, but we're not going to see a Democrat win there. The highest that the Democrat can get is a 48% win there, and then just tying with Deb Fischer, but that's probably not going to happen. So overall, the Senate map, not too good for the Democrats. I mean, having a 1 in 3% chance of winning control, the House looks a lot better for Democrats, so a lot of their money should be spent on the House and also retaining their numbers in the Senate. They shouldn't be focusing on gaining seats. Yes, they can campaign in Arizona and Texas and Tennessee, but they have to keep in mind that if they're spending funds there, they're possibly going to lose in North Dakota or Missouri or Indiana. If they lose those 3 states and then gain those 3 states, the party composition stays the same. However, it doesn't put the Democrats in any better of a position than where they were before. Because keep in mind, they're transferring out 3 Republican states for 3 more Republican states. So those Democratic senators will soon be vulnerable. It would make sense if the Democrats were able to lose a Republican state and then go into a pretty solid lose a Republican state and go into a pretty solid Democratic state. So, for example, they lose North Dakota but make a gain in Maryland. That would make sense. But transferring out 3 Republican states for another 3 Republican states, not too good for the Democrats, because they would be the exact same predicament 6 years later after these elections. And I know not many people are looking as far out to that, but when we have such as contested as the Senate is now, every single Senate vote matters. I mean, all of this party composition type thing really does matter. With a 51-49 majority for the Republicans, everything matters in this race for 2018. The 2018 House elections, not as much of a national implication, because again, the Democrats could have a narrow majority there. In terms of the Senate, a narrow majority is just as good as a majority that is 59-41. So keep that in mind. When we look at the House elections, not so much, because everyone comes with their own personal agenda. We have a point where we have 435 congressmen compared to 100 senators. Log rolling, very prominent in the House and in the Senate. So things like that definitely possibly will not be too good for the Democrats in the House. There's a reason why the Democrats, typically when they're in the presidency in the White House, they also may not work well with a Senate and a House, because the pure reason that people come with their own agenda. Just because they're a Democrat doesn't mean they're voting with the Democrats. For example, Ben Nelson from Nebraska. A lot was given up in Obamacare because they needed that 60th vote to push it through. And when it comes down to it, the House may look good for the Democrats at this point in time, but it changes every 2 years. Yes, the Senate does change every 2 years, but these elections won't be up for another 6 years. So Tennessee will be stuck with the Democrat for 6 years after that. Arizona will be stuck. Texas will be stuck. And North Dakota could likely be stuck with 2 Republicans for the next 6 years. Possibly just for the seat, though. The other seat will be up up in 2022, 4 years from now. Tennessee, the other one up in 2 years from now. But still, they will be stuck with that seat being a certain political party. So the Senate having more of an implication over time. The House, not so much. But still, I would say the House is better for the Democrats. The Senate, better for the GOP. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I'll see you all tomorrow.